Aspiring Charlotteans, friends, family, countrymen, countrywomen, country people, city boy. Today we're talking about Charlotte traffic and how insane it's going to be, and whether or not it's impossible to fix. So specifically, why does every new lane, new roadway in Charlotte seem to fill up the moment that it opens? And also, we're going to break down exactly why Charlotte's traffic keeps beating every fix that we have thrown at it so far, even as we're adding more lanes, more highways, throwing more money at the problem. And we're going to see how the growth that we have experienced over the past few years means that just building more roads may not be truly the answer. And what is the answer? So we're going to talk about currently how bad it really is, or not. What's the current state of things. We're going to talk about what the growth has looked like, and answer the question of really like who's flooding in, how's the growth been looking. We're going to understand whether or not we can actually build our way out of this, and what is the core reason behind the traffic problem currently. And then understand what are the things that are not going to work that people have talked about, and understand why they don't work, so that you can also understand what are some of the things that will work, that will actually help, that you can look forward to, that are coming up very soon. And then also really just answer the question, can Charlotte actually turn this situation around? And if so, what is it going to take to make it happen? And if you're moving here, or if you're thinking about moving here, how can you actually commute proof your move so that when you move here, you don't end up regretting that decision? It might sound like a lot. I'm going to try to get through this pretty quick, and maybe we can get through this in half an hour, something like that. Get you in and out right quick, because we respect your time here. So first up, how bad is it currently? And what can you expect when you look at all these beautiful roads here? I call it the spider web, because Charlotte, according to several lists, has one of the not so great commutes in America, and the problem is only getting worse. So, how bad is the commute today? So, a few of the facts I want to verify that I've heard, but I have not seen. Supposedly, we have the second worst commute in the U.S., according to Queen City News. This was as of 2024, only behind Nashville. I find that difficult to believe, because Atlanta is definitely far worse. Even people that hate Charlotte will say that the only thing going for Charlotte is that it's not Atlanta. But we'll see. If you commute to work, you're in good company. Estimated 74% of Americans commute. Commuters spend an average of 28 minutes commuting one way to work. You know firsthand the Queen City has some of the heaviest congestion in the state. But how does the Charlotte commute compare to other metropolitan areas across the country? Report card is out, and it's not good. If you drove to work this morning on I-85, 277, 485, I-77, and other congested roadways, you already know that. No matter how nice your car, how pleasant your playlist is, no one enjoys driving in traffic that can slow to a snail's pace. True. Forbes just released their commuting report, and Charlotte was ranked as having the second worst commute in America. Nashville, Charlotte, Houston, Washington, D.C., L.A. This is a garbage list, in my opinion. DFW is far worse. Anybody that lives in DFW, when they come here, are ecstatic to not be in DFW. Let's see. Percentage of households without access to a car. Transit score, walk score. I mean, it really seems like They just love. Let's read through. It sounds like they just love having access to public transit, which is not bad, but it's not everything. Interesting. Okay. Walkability scored 26.4. %33% of major roads are in bad or mediocre condition, according to a report from the NTRN. Transportation Research Nonprofit. This just seems like a very convoluted list. So, but it was ranked. Doesn't mean it's a good ranking, but it was ranked. Okay, next up. So INRIX, this is one of the tools we use. They're a traffic data company. Global leader in transportation data and analytics. Istanbul's 105 hours loss to congestion topped the worldwide rankings, followed closely by New York City and Chicago. So basically, Charlotte doesn't even remotely make the top of this list. Or this list too. That's interesting. Chicago has 5 of the top 10 worst roadways. Yeah, somebody explain to me how Chicago didn't make that list. International cities grow at a faster rate of traffic delays. Let's see. Okay, so that one's also validated. 28 commute each way. Yeah. Where does it choke the hardest? Facts to verify. I-77, I-45, Brookshire. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. So, I-77 going down past 485 gets very congested through there. Brookshire. Let's see. Let's see if we can, okay, we'll turn on traffic. So you can also kind of see, and this is pretty representative. So if you're going south on 485, and also if you're going north on 485, but you're trying to go west on 85, that cloverleaf is god awful. Normally what you can do is take back roads through here to then hop on to 74 and then hop back on and bypass it. A lot of people do that. A lot of the back roads are also closed right now. So, there's not really a great way around it, TBH. But that's one of the spots that really sucks. Also, just going up and down I-77, there's a lot of traffic because of people getting on and off of the toll lanes up there. 485, or excuse me, regular 85 is always pretty solid. I'm gonna be real. I've never really slowed down much going through 85, and I think that's a testament to the fact that, especially with a lot of the events that take place over at, over at Concord Mills and over at the Z-Max drag strip and the NASCAR stadium, Charlotte NASCAR track, whatnot. Yeah, there's like the roads are just built for a lot of traffic, a lot of volume there, and so they're pretty good, pretty easy to deal with. Now, what else? 74 before you get to the bypass can sometimes be a massive B word. And the bypass is pretty easy, but old 74 that goes through the middle of Monroe can have a lot of congestion. But those are a few of the ones that are pretty tough. Now, this is where things are today. The good news is that Charlotte does have a lot of changes to the roads that we can hopefully not be sitting on stuck in traffic for forever. And so let's talk about what are some of the things that, as they're planning these changes, they're planning for. And so it's important to understand what is the growth that we're planning for? Who's coming here? Where are they going? How's it going to change the face of the city, the landscape of the city that we got to plan for? So, biggest thing to remember, Charlotte is growing at a rate of 157 new residents a day, up from 113 just a year ago, according to Axios. We are a top 5 U.S. metro for growth, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. And one of the things that is just insane is that the region as a whole is projected to nearly double to over 4.6 million by 2050, up from about 3 million in 2024. And this is according to the UNC Charlotte study by UNC Charlotte and something regional. I don't remember exactly what it was in my notes, but 80% of that growth is going to land in Mecklenburg County, York, Union, and Iredell. And so it's just not possible, really, to add roads as fast as you add people. Or let me restate that. So really the question is, with this massive growth on the horizon, is it possible, is it even possible, to add roads as fast as we're adding people? And this is really important to understand, because really when you get down to the question of traffic, this entire video, like the real point is understanding like what is possible, what is going to happen on the demand side, what's going to happen on the supply side to try to address that and fix this, and what is possible for us to do over the next few years. And so if you're thinking, well, just they got to start building roads and keep adding lanes, that it's not that simple. It's not that simple. So, is it possible to build our way out of this pickle, and what are our options to actually try to get ourselves out of this pickle? Because Charlotte keeps adding lanes, traffic keeps winning. Let's see. In the struggle against traffic, as Charlotte keeps adding lanes, the traffic keeps winning. And so let's talk about a very interesting phenomena. I'm going to get a little bit heady here, but it's important to understand. So there's something in civil engineering called induced demand. And I had not actually heard about this. Let's see, induced demand trap. Fundamental law of road congestion. It is a phenomenon where adding more highway lanes or building new roads ultimately fails to reduce traffic, because a larger road effectively lowers the cost of driving. It encourages more people to drive, which quickly fills the new capacity and returns congestion to its original level. So understand that cycles key to seeing why just one more lane approach rarely works. So basically, as the highway gets congestion, government widens the road to fix it. Travel times temporarily improve, which then activates latent demand. So people who used to avoid peak hours or take transit or take alternate routes now drive that same route, which then causes new developments to sprawl even further out to where there's more cheap land. And then as a result, you end up with more traffic gridlock. This is incredibly fascinating to me because even though, again, I'm an engineer by background, I'd never actually seen this previously. And it also explains why we have seen widening I-485 didn't really cut a dent. The wider road just pulled in more drivers, according to a study by the Charlotte Urban Institute. I-485 from I-85 to North Tryon, 12,000 cars a day in 2002 is now up to 52,000 cars a day by 2013. Also, according to the Charlotte Urban Institute, I can only imagine what that's up to these days. And the same corridor projected actually I have the number right here. 180,000 daily drivers by 2035. So, by expanding the roads, we ended up, what would that be? Like 15xing the number of people that were driving that same route. And so, it's important to understand, as we're looking at all the traffic here, right? There are other very similar cities that have gone through similar growth stages that Charlotte has gone through, like Atlanta, Houston, LA. They kept widening for decades. Like you talk about like 12-lane highways in LA. And they have consistently, according to, again, some of the traffic scoring and data studies and things that we've looked at, LA has consistently been like one of the worst places to drive and commute because guess what? They kept making it easy to drive, relatively speaking, so people then continued to drive. And so Atlanta, Houston, LA kept widening for decades, stayed among some of the most congested in the country, and a lot of local press, a lot of local, news outlets and concerned citizens, people who care about this stuff. Everybody here is asking, like, are we going to turn into Atlanta? Because Atlanta's kind of a shithole. Pardon my French. There's, like, I moved to Charlotte because it's not Atlanta. And so if we keep adding lanes, many people are kind of concerned that we're going to end up accidentally turning into Atlanta. And so, if more lanes don't actually fix the problem, what does that actually mean? And so, in my take, adding lanes is going to temporarily help, and it will make it possible for people to drive more. The problem, though, is that it's going to just, again, cause more people to want to drive and also develop further out to want to then drive into the city. So then you're going to have this compounding where the further you get into the city, the more there is traffic, the more there are people that are driving. And so I don't think that this is necessarily impossible to fix, but I do think that trying to fix it by just continuing to build more lanes is a losing proposition, because if you think about it in terms of game theory, what's going to happen is we're going to just continue to encourage more of the behavior that is causing something that we don't currently want, if that makes sense. And so the problem, again, is not so much the cars as much as it is the landscape that they're driving through, and the fact that, again, we are a city that has grown so quickly and is going to continue to grow so quickly. And so in order to fix the problem, we have to take a different approach. So to how are things built? How are the roads built here? What was Charlotte really built for? Was it built for this? Why did it come to be? Well, Charlotte was not built for 3 million people. Honestly, it was built for being a much smaller town, not even necessarily small cities, big small town. They got incredibly lucky for several different reasons. So, Charlotte's layout does not make this better. It makes it a lot worse because it was sprawled by design. In the 60s, in the 70s, when cars and big parking and supermarkets and all that thing were all the rage, having a low density, car dependent, with 83% of people driving to work, 1.3% of people taking some sort of transit, growth pushed way out into Union County, Iredell County, York, with longer drives back in to the metro area for commuting for work and whatnot. And so in the early 2000s, one of the very first things that the city did to try to address this was to build the Lynx Blue Line, which is a single light rail line that runs, let me show you, from down here close to Pineville up through uptown Charlotte and then up into University City. And so a lot of people do in fact use that. And one of the things we've noticed is bus routes through there have seen a massive drop off in ridership since it opened, because a lot of people just take the light rail now. There's been a lot of apartments that are walking distance to the light rail or biking distance to the light rail. There's a lot of trails and things that have like greenways that have sprung up to make it easier for people to get to the light rail from apartment complexes and that sort of thing. And so we already have this massive network of roads, and so it, like, even though you can widen a road, it's hard to unsprawl an entire region. It's hard to undo a lot of the sprawl that has already occurred, because again, like, you go 45 minutes in any direction, like you're up in Statesville, you're up in Salisbury, you're out past Monroe, you're out in Waxhaw, you're down in Rock Hill or out in Gastonia or Kings Mountain. Like, there's a lot of sprawl that has happened, and a lot of people really depend on it continuing to be sprawled. And so the only way that you can begin to quote unquote unsprawl that is by giving alternate ways that are not driving, that are also convenient, that people will begin to use for other reasons, and just incentivize them to use other means of getting around, so that, again, if you have, let's say, a 30 commute from Gastonia into Uptown, or from Harrisburg into Uptown, or what have you, right? If you can make that 30 minutes and then just disincentivize using cars, people will start to use other means of transportation and just make it really easy for them to get to the train station or whatever the mass transit is. And so the real question is, how can we fix this? How can we save people time? And what's in the works to actually try to fix this? And so there is actually a $19 billion plan to try to address the issue of the traffic here. But the problem is, most of it may not get you there as quickly as you might hope. And so what is the big plan, and when are we actually going to see it take shape? Well, this past fall, we saw a 1 cent sales tax approval that is starting actually here in just tomorrow. Shoot, that's crazy. July 1st, 2026. And is expected to raise close to $20 billion over the next 30 years for roads, rails, and buses. So all types of transportation. It is split up as 40% going to roads, 40% going to rail, 20% going to buses. And so the Red Line commuter rail is going to go 25 miles up to Iredell County, up here in like Morrisville area. It's going to take 9 years to build all the way. And the Silver Line is going to go from the airport to Uptown, And then I think it's still supposed to go somewhat past. It was originally going to go to Matthews, and then it didn't, and then people started getting pissy about it, especially Matthews in particular. It can only start after the red line is 50% done, and so that is still a few years out. It's not going to be running just tomorrow or anything. And so the interesting thing is, so we have toll lanes, which do make it possible for you to get around quickly if need be. The new toll lanes they added to the south here, the southern part of 485, and then also 77 going north. The ones on the 485 express lane opened in February of 2026. There's an 18-mile stretch from I-77 to I-74, or Highway 74, which gives one paid lane each way. Tolls are already being raised as demand climbs because they throttle the toll rates. And according to NCDOT, again, because of, you guessed it, to bring us full circle, the induced demand trap, one of the fundamental law of road congestion, the I-77 toll project, which I guess would technically be, I think this was actually when they were talking about like putting toll lanes through I-77, 277 around Uptown. Or maybe it was expanding the 77 toll lanes southward, I believe. They were saying it could actually increase traffic up to 44%. And so it would make traffic worse, not better. And so if you're moving here in 2026, if you're moving here this year, how's this going to help you commute to work on a Tuesday? How's this going to help you get out to dinner with the family on a Thursday night, right? A lot of the growth is today. To really fix, or I should say, quote unquote, fix the issue, we're 10 to 30 years out. And honestly, I mean, not to get overly philosophical, like most things in life, a lot of the problem has to do with expectations more than it does with the actual state of things itself. So it is true, if there's no traffic, you can get from McAdenville or Belmont or something into the city in like 12 minutes. It is true that if there's no traffic, you can get from Birkdale Village down into the center of the city in 12 to 15 minutes. Or from Statesville all the way into the center of the city in like 40 minutes. It is true. But it would also be unreasonable to expect that there's never going to be any traffic and it's always going to be easy. And so one of the best things I think that all of us can do as you're trying to plan out your future commute or plan out just your future access into the city is, one, get really clear on like what are the priorities that are going to continue to be priorities for a long time. And so to make it really tangible, like what do you enjoy doing with your spouse on a Tuesday night? What is it that you really want to have time for to do with your kids on a Saturday morning? Where can you engineer that into your day-to-day life in a way that's going to really add real quality of life by being able to, again, prioritize the things that matter most, whether that is just not commuting, getting to spend more time with family, or whether that's being able to say yes to getting out in nature more, or whether that's going to the Whitewater Center with your puppy like I love to do with Penny, who's taking a nap under the desk right now. Whatever it is that is important to you, I would say really, really intentionally see how you can prioritize the things that bring you joy more and more intentionally, rather than trying to just have access to the entire city, because having maximum access to the entire city, ironically, may not give you as much access to the things you really care about most. And so honestly, the number one thing to solve for this today is, especially if you're looking at buying a home, or if you're preparing to buy a home and you're renting somewhere for a while, because I support that too. The best thing that you can really do is to sample things and get really clear on like what are the parks and festivals and things that you look forward to that you can sample and try and do with the people that you love most. Because that's what's going to probably improve your quality of life the most overall. And then if budget allows, or if you can plan ahead to make the career moves, to make the job moves, or to, if you own your own business like I do, to plan out your business so that you can like do the math, figure out like how much money would you need to make to live where you really want to live, and then add 25% to whatever that is to have extra quality of life, and also, you know, as inflation and other things just are inevitable, plan ahead for that. And this is probably not the most popular take, but like if you just plan for it, guess what? You will be able to get very, very clear on like what needs to be true in order to make it possible, and then it will give you the awareness, because where attention goes, energy flows. It'll give you the awareness to figure out how you can create the life that you really want, that's going to bring you a lot of joy and a lot of fulfillment. And it just starts with a lot of intentionality. So so let's talk about, can Charlotte turn it around? Moving on to the next section. Can Charlotte turn it around? Charlotte isn't necessarily doomed, but the way out is narrow. We don't have a lot of options here. I'm going to keep it real. We only got so many options on what we can do about it. So, what would actually have to happen to make this better, to make this whole traffic situation better? Well, we would need to see more incentive around increasing the number of remote or hybrid work arrangements so that we can permanently reduce the number of trips that are on the road every day, and especially like the timing of those. All of that $19.4 billion of funds for roads, buses, etc., and rail. In the early years, we would want to see a rapid increase in bus frequency and microtransit. We would want to see probably dedicated bus lanes, and just really kind of force people to take mass transit. Like that's really the only way you could really, is just make it really easy to take mass transit and really difficult to take anything else. Because it's a huge lifestyle change for people that have never taken mass transit to convince them to take mass transit. Like, do you know how hard it was to convince my dad to get his first iPhone? Now he loves it. He still is impossible to reach half the time. Love you, Dad. But like, to convince my dad to get his first iPhone was really, really difficult. To convince somebody that has never taken mass transit to try it in Charlotte is also going to be probably a challenge. But that is really the long-term solution, is just getting broader adoption and improving our mass transit with all this funding that's pouring into expanding access to buses, bus routes, more light rails, more and also improving roads. We're going to see that is a very viable solution. One of the questions people also have is like, can we just build up instead of building out? And so can we, like, they were floating the idea, I think, of stacking lanes on top of each other through 277. Now, aside from the cost, because that is pretty expensive, I'd love to pull up some photos of that, because I know that they had them somewhere. Sorry in advance for these ads. Sorry about that. Actually, let me just double check. I actually have audio on this. Sorry in advance. Sorry in advance. I know I didn't put audio on there. See, now, if we go back to, again, sorry, if we go back to induced demand trap, so even if we make it easier to drive, it's going to just keep incentivizing more people to drive. And really, what we have to do is just, um, that's interesting. Transportation for America. Just man. We need to find an interesting video about induced demand trap. I bet there's a fun video about that. Let's just see. So basically, what you see is just like anytime you make it easy for people to get around, they're gonna take whatever's easiest to get around, and then you just try to balance that out. And you're gonna see areas where it's easier to get around will become more expensive because that's something like people value convenience, and so there's in a very real way a cost to convenience, which we all know. But when you quantify it, again, like you can wish that it was free, but it's not. People are going to be willing to pay for it. And if you try to fix the problem one way, it may temporarily alleviate the problem, but it will not permanently fix it. It will just change forms. I feel like we're very, very philosophical on this stream today. Cincinnati. I'm gonna be super real. Growing up in a smaller mid-size or a large small size city like Indianapolis, I don't understand all the hate towards cars. I do from an engineering perspective. Like this makes it a lot more sense as to why people dislike automobiles. That said, though, it still as long as you're the only one on the road, it's a pretty dope way to get around. Only thing that could be cooler would be a helicopter. Only thing that could be cooler. It's a great one-liner. I like it. Okay. Well, shoot. Going back to this particular, let's build more trains. I'm sold. Let's build all the trains and bike lanes and no more cars. Lucas for mayor 2020, whatever. I don't even know when the next round of elections is. Because we just had something. I forget. Anyways, I'm off in the weeds. So we have seen some cities that have done this previously. So there's examples of cities that did continue to widen roads, like Atlanta, Houston, and LA. They have never escaped from more induced car traffic. And honestly, again, wherever we invest, if we make it easier, people are going to start doing more of it. And so, peer cities that invested early in rail gave drivers a way to opt out even when roads stayed full. Let's find an example. What cities invested in rail transit early? San Francisco, Atlanta, DC. I will say DC did a really good job of that. Because a lot of people still playing around. Like the traffic is kind of ass, but the transit is pretty fire. Chicago also did. Philadelphia. I will say the only thing that Chicago did not do as good of a job of is just making it safe. But Philadelphia, Pitt, also Pittsburgh. I don't see it on this list. Let's see. What? Not Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. Learn about Sunbelt cities like Phoenix, Dallas, and Charlotte that have invested in light rail over the past 2 decades, and which cities are aggressively expanding their transit networks right now. Let's see. Pittsburgh is a fascinating hybrid case that fits both the legacy streetcar and modern expansion categories. City, one of the largest early trolley networks in North America, and unlike industrial cities, resisted fully destroying its rail footprint during the mid-20th century automotive boom. Pittsburgh modernized its legacy infrastructure to build what is known as the T today, which it then converted into a subway. Very interesting. To conquer the terrain, early transit privateers built the Mount Washington Transit Tunnel in 1904. Initially dedicated purely to streetcars, it remains in use today, making Pittsburgh the only U.S. city where trains and transit buses explicitly share a tunnel. That's pretty cool. Launched massive modernization project, upgraded light rail system, opened downtown subway system. Engineers retrofitted the historic Panhandle Bridge, a former 1860s railroad span across the Monongahela River. Somebody from Pitt, tell me how bad I just butchered that. Let's see how you pronounce that. How to pronounce. Monongahela River. Brand new underground subway tunnel beneath the downtown core. This eliminated street running trolley downtown, moving them entirely underground. Hey, guess what we're doing? We're converting this entire channel to Charlotte trains. That's what we're going to talk about, or mid-sized city trains. If you're any sort of a transit planner, urban planner, anything of the sort, comment. I want to get somebody on here. I want to interview someone. I'd be curious. I'd be super curious. So basically, Pittsburgh is actually a really great example of like what we probably should do as a city. So basically, growth is inevitable, and if you do anything to make a city not suck, people will then do more of whatever sucks the least. And so the best thing you can do is just try to give people the densest, most efficient way to get around, which is honestly walking. So, all roads lead back to our roots of just wandering around in the woods, which is what I did this last weekend. It was pretty cool. I'm a fan. My first time camping this last weekend, I would do it again. And, Charlotte has lots of trees, so it's probably, out of all the cities to camp in, I'd say it's probably one of the better ones. Anyways, so if you're moving to Charlotte, what does this mean for you? Let's talk about specifically like with the traffic here. It's part of life. It's not something that we're going to be able to completely do away with. But it is something that we can make sure it doesn't run your life. It's not a huge detractor. And so, according to INRIX, the worst delay are when people are commuting cross town or cross corridor. And so they are trying to get through, like, let's say, an entire stretch of 85 or an entire stretch of 77 or an entire stretch of 74. Because you only got one way to go through. If you hit any sort of an issue, you're stuck doing what you're doing. And so, also, one of the ways you can get around it too is if you're able to get a remote or a hybrid job or live in very, very close proximity to your job, then you're also able to circumvent the whole traffic issue. And for the existing light rails or existing bus lines that are going to be converted into rails, those will also give you an option to circumvent traffic, which will make it possible to avoid having to cross corridors or go through some of these problematic traffic areas. And also just in the market as a whole, again, we got light rails coming from the airport and likely from Belmont through past the airport into Uptown and then down towards Matthews. We're talking about expanding the light rail into Pineville, the blue line into Pineville, and maybe even down into Fort Mill. We're going to put the red line going up very, very soon into Birkdale Village up to Davidson College and eventually into Morrisville. And so you can buy along those lines as well. The future blue line, red line, silver line stops are going to be a while out, but they're going to add a lot of long-term value. And again, at the end of the day, you should be optimizing for life today as much as you can, because there's still a lot of great spots you can choose to live where traffic is not terrible. It has pretty good access to public transit. And also, you can just get out, walk around, and really enjoy what is there today. And so, a lot of this all depends on exactly what you enjoy doing, what you want to be close to, what's important to you. I put together the Charlotte Areas Quiz in order to help you figure out what are neighborhoods, towns, areas that are going to give you a great balance and access to the things that matter most to you. It gives you a personalized list of areas, of areas within all the different counties, towns, neighborhoods, etc. that will fit you best. You can scan the QR code or tap the link below. I made a new version. I still got to update the link, but I made a new version of this where you can actually put in how long of a commute you want to the different things that matter to you most, and it will, again, help score different neighborhoods and towns based off of that. I think it's pretty cool, and you should go check it out. If you're watching the replay, the link will already be updated, so go ahead, scan it now. Take the new updated version, even if you already took the old version, because the new version is dope. I put a lot of time into it. You guys have no idea how much time I put into stuff and tools and things like this for you. And I do it because I want to help you make Charlotte home and have a good time doing it. I love y'all. I appreciate you. Have a phenomenal rest of your Tuesday. And if you got any questions, or if you know a city planner that I can bring on here, I would love to talk to them. Drop it down in the comments. Y'all have a phenomenal rest of your week. Until next time, as always, make Charlotte home. I'm Lucas Roller, your favorite realtor here. Love y'all.